It seems some Democrats are taking oversight to a whole new level, literally. After barging into an ICE facility in Newark, they're now claiming congressional privilege as their get-out-of-jail-free card. But is this oversight or overstep? Here with more is Oversight Project President Mike Howell. And people can go read the story at theblaze.com if they want more. But let's dive into this. How did these Democrat lawmakers, what did they do that sparked all of this controversy?
Yeah, to put it simply, they bum rushed an ICE facility. They were at a protest there, then they didn't listen to directions from law enforcement, ended up getting combative with them. In some instances, there's videotape of them actually assaulting some of the ICE officers there. And DHS has said there's more body camera footage coming out with more crimes on it. So it was a protest that got out of control. They broke the law, it appears. And now, as their last ditch offense, they're saying they're above the law.
What are the potential legal consequences of their actions?
So twofold. U.S. Attorney in the District of New Jersey is Alina Habba, and she's already indicated they're looking into this. So federal crimes there that would relate to trespassing, assault on a federal officer, things of that nature. So serious federal crimes, very close equivalent to what people in January 6th were charged with if it's applied equally. A second thing that we spoke about is internal to the House discipline. I think this is an excellent case for expulsion. Recall in recent history, George Santos was expelled before he was even convicted of a crime. Here, I think there's enough evidence that a conviction, if charged, is more likely than not. So I would proceed with the expulsion route. Short of that, and frankly, we got to adjust our expectations because expulsion takes 2/3. They should be removed from their committee assignments. These people clearly can't be trusted with sensitive information that relates to the Department of Homeland Security. So I would like to see them removed. And that's what we recommended to Chairman Mark Green today.
Well, Mike, I want to move on because we have a story that is, you've already talked about two different aspects of this story. The Oversight Project broke the Biden Autopen story, and we've been talking to you about Ed Martin. So here's an update from Ed Martin on the latest from the DOJ.
We've never seen pardons of the scope, and it looks at least like something that you could be corrupt. When Bill Clinton pardoned Mark Rich, and turns out that Mark Rich had paid a boatload of money to one of Clinton's friends, lawyers, that's not corrupt. It's not criminal because the plenary power of the pardon. But in the case of Joe Biden and his pardons, they were so specific, back 14 years, covering everything you've ever done. I mean, when I say specific, they were broad, but they had time stuff on them. It was and that at least leads to questions because the plenary power is true, but the question is what was going on here? And I did get responses from some of them, and those things are ongoing.
Mike, this is your story. What happens next here?
Well, I think Ed Martin, now the Department of Justice, has indicated that department will throw its weight behind it. That's where this always needed to go. To test the pardons, you need to charge the people for the crimes in which they're guilty of. And Ed Martin has clearly expanded kind of the scope. It's not just that they were signed by the Autopen mechanism and perhaps without Joe Biden's one, awareness, or two, his capacity to even, give his consent to it, if it is even legal to use an Autopen device, which is not. But Martin's calling it a new category of things that we've also spoken about, whether there was corrupt intent or a conspiracy in the awarding of the pardons. And then second to that, whether it exceeds the scope of the pardon power, which is plenary itself. In other words, are these not pardons at all? Were they corruptly designed? And then were they also fraudulent in the implementation via the Autopen? There's a lot wrong with these pardons, and I'm glad the DOJ is on it.
Yeah, this is a great example of the new world in which we live. I mean, the fact that Ed Martin is there going after this kind of stuff aggressively within the DOJ, I think warms the heart of many in our audience who are looking for something, anything, right? I mean, one of the most common refrains, we should be honest, that you see in the audience is, when is anyone going to face justice? When is anyone going to go to jail? When is anyone going to face the consequences of their crimes? I'm confident that he's going to plow forward on this, but what are the next steps?
So the very next step would be to charge one of these people. You could start with an FBI investigation. One thing that's helpful here is a lot of evidence that relates to their crimes is already out there. There's not much that is needed in terms of an investigation. Take, Adam Schiff, for example, on the January 6th. It's likely a violation of civil rights type criminal charge. Same thing goes for Fauci and others. And so depending on the jurisdiction, which will largely be in Washington, D.C., it looks like Judge Janine, the new D.C. U.S. attorney, would be the one most likely to bring the charges. And then in the course of that prosecution, of course, these defendants will come up and say, no, I have a perfectly good pardon. And that is the means by which the pardons will be tested. And in doing so, we might finally understand who was actually running the White House. Because to say their pardon was good, they're going to have to provide evidence of, who signed off on it, who was involved. And we finally can begin to answer the question everyone wants to know: who was running the White House the last 4 years?
Yeah, well, we were all had Martin Mania here on this show. When you came on, we were ready for it, except it was the GOP's own that stood in the way, right? It's Senator Thom Tillis. He was out there. He was putting up a fight. So how long is MAGA going to put up with Tillis and others like him?
Yeah, hopefully not long at all. I don't think MAGA is putting up with them. If you read the comments on any of his tweets since he's tried to go on basically a pro-MAGA apology tour, he's absolutely getting ripped apart. And I have on good authority that he was absolutely apoplectic over the appointment of Judge Janine and, chose to celebrate her anyways to try to make the pain go away. But it's not. Ultimately, what this comes down to is whether the political apparatus at the top is going to forgive Thom Tillis for basically trying to get Democrat votes since he doesn't have a primary opponent, and basically sanction him doing the unthinkable to President Trump in the first time, denying a president of his own party a U.S. attorney nomination in Washington, D.C. And so that's the real test. Will he get a primary challenge, and will he get the support of the White House and others? Obviously, I don't think he deserves it. And I think if you sanction this, it hurts the entire implementation of the agenda moving forward.
When I look at Tillis and some of these other senators, John Cornyn comes to mind and others, there really has to be, in order for there to be accountability in Washington, these people have to be moved aside and they have to be primaried. I'm also wondering about oversight in their case, because you're talking about, in many cases, they're well-heeled, right? They have lots of money and they have lots of long-established donors. And I'm curious, Blaze News about that in many cases, because I don't feel like there's been a lot of scrutiny in conservative media about how some of these players operate.
That's absolutely right. The power of the incumbents, which are harder to knock off politically, isn't just because voters are more familiar with them. It's because they're able to use their official positions to basically protect themselves. And I think that is a fundamental hack that's underway of our constitutional republic. It shouldn't be so hard to unseat an incumbent, even when they've done so much that the people are upset about, because it comes down to money. And they use their official positions to, make permanent their money advantage. And that's wrong. And you saw Mitch McConnell today. He's out there talking about we must obey Reagan's golden rule, never talk ill about another Republican. And I think that's one of the worst orthodoxies that's out there, that we can't criticize these incumbents who should only be there temporarily. I think we need to up the pressure on the incumbents. And the fact that Mitch McConnell is going back to the Reagan era to say it's somehow some unprincipled act to, say what's really happening out loud. We need to do away with that orthodoxy.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous, because I think this movement is ultimately about, the mandate of the people, which is not for the Republican Party, but for some specific policy objectives and rolling back the administrative state and so forth and so on. And so I appreciate you saying that, because I think right-leaning media needs to step up, and we plan to do that at Blaze and hold people accountable. Now, we have to announce something exciting here, because we haven't really announced it yet on the show, which is that you, Mike Howell, will be joining us every week and contributing to the Blaze and becoming a contributor here at Blaze Media.
Hey, well, I'm thrilled. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to do so. I've long admired all of y'all's work, and there's no place I'd rather be. So we're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. So tell us about some of the things you're working on these days, and what kind of stuff we might expect to see in the future.
Absolutely. So we're filling the void, the absence of real litigation to discover unique information and get it out to the people, coupled with our investigative team. Categorically, what that looks like is a lot in the resistance to the immigration enforcement space. I think what the subversion and obstruction that's happening there is something that should be treated like a crime scene. And so we intend to treat it like that and investigate it and get the facts out there to push this administration and others along to actually prosecute this stuff and put an end to it. On political corruption generally, we're going to be all over it. In fact, I wasn't anticipating this, but I think we'll be very active in North Carolina after Senator Tillis kind of, raised his hand and said he was going to be the first one to publicly thwart the president in such a dramatic way. We're also going to be suing all these blue state governors who are auditioning for president. Big news coming on Janet Mills. Sorry, Janet, you're first up. And then Wes Moore's, I think he's the one they're running. I think the country deserves to know what a horrid record he has. There's a reason why George Clooney loves him so much, and they're trying to position him. And we're not going to let them rebrand these guys as somehow, moderate, normal Americans when they've done so many terrible things. And so that's kind of going to be the thrust and the energy, along with helping out our good friends in the administration like Ed Martin on things like the Autopen investigation and actually de-weaponizing these agencies. There's a really short window to get it done, and we got to be loud, we got to be fast, and excited to join you every week and write and help get the message out, because it's going to take all of us.
I absolutely love all of that you're saying. I could sit here for the next hour and deep dive on all those things with you, but that's the beauty of this. We're actually going to get to do that with you once a week. Mike Howell, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you all.